Good evening. This is Dr. D tonight. And tonight I'm going to be talking about domestic violence, especially violence in the LGBTQA plus community. But before we begin our talk tonight, let's take a deep breath. This is a subject that needs to be talked about, and we need to clear our mind, we need to clear our hearts, we need to clear our consciousness to be able to connect with the Godness, which is love, acceptance, forgiveness. Dear God of many names, who is all love, who is all compassion, who is all mercy and all grace. As we breathe in, the very essence of spirit, dear God, we see ourselves with a little ball of white light coming into our mind, coming down through our throats, through our hearts, through our stomach, through our sacral regions. We see ourselves walking into a beautiful garden. And as we walk into this garden tonight, we see a stream of water flowing in the garden. And we say, I am at peace. I am at peace. I am home. And God of many names, so it is. There's a lot of people that experience family violence, and it can actually impact almost anyone. Younger women, children. I know as a child, I was the product of domestic violence and sexual violence. Older people, as an older person, I've been a victim of violence. People with disabilities, people that are culturally and from have a different language and diverse backgrounds, and yes, even people that are here on a temporary residency status. Doesn't have to be in the city, it can be even LGBTQA plus people that are in rural communities. Transgender people, according to statistics, are 4 times more likely than cisgender people to be victims of violent crimes. Transgender people experience violent victimization, including rape, sexual assault, aggravated and simple assault. And this is according to the Williams Institute at UCLA School of Law. In addition to individuals, households with a transgender person have higher rates of property victimization than cisgender households. Now, I live in Palm Springs, and you would think in Palm Springs, in our very open community in the desert, that it would be a bubble of safety. And I was just talking to somebody today, and one of our transgender ladies that lives in Desert Hot Springs, the instance was brought to my attention that just the other night, that groups of people were driving around her house, around the block, and they were taunting her, verbally, honking their horn, saying things that were abusive. That is a form of assault. That is a form of violence. Do you know that almost half of gay couples experience intimate partner violence at some point? A study in the US, because we don't have a lot of these studies, studied that same-sex relationships suffer higher levels of domestic violence than heterosexual ones. So why is this? What are we going to do about it? How are we handling this? Why don't we know more about it? Shame. There was a time before transgendering that I identified strictly as a gay male. And my standard was that I would never hook up with somebody that had a boyfriend, somebody that was married, that they had to be single, because I do respect relationships highly. And I met this guy at a bar one night, went home with him. In the middle of the night, there was this shattering of the window in the bedroom. It was his former boyfriend. Maybe it was his current. I don't know the issue. It was just going to be a one-night thing for me. Came flying through the window, cursing, carrying on, and was going to kill anybody that was in that bed with his friend. Child, I grabbed my clothes. I ran for my life. I got dressed on the sidewalk. A few days later, I saw the guy who I had hooked up with. His nose was broken. His eyes were blackened. His arm was broken. He had been beaten to a pulp by his either former or current partner. We're talking about domestic violence. And when I heard him telling somebody about it, he said he was in an accident. Why is that? Especially two men. Are you going to admit that another man beat you up and bruised you? How's that set with your masculinity, your manhood? Oh yeah, shame. A lot of times drugs are part of the culture, and drugs tend to be involved in violent crimes with men actually more than they do among women. And I happen to know somebody that their boyfriend and them were partying, and they were doing G, and the one blacked out. The other beat the other one to a pulp, to the point that he could not go to work. And when he finally did go to work, he was still black and blue, and the boyfriend that did the beating sent the police to his work and had him arrested for domestic violence. And the victim was spending the time in jail. And the crazy thing is that the one that was beaten continued to go back to the abusive boyfriend over and over again and be abused in different ways. Now, I'm not judging this, I'm just telling you the story, because I've been in these stories. I've been part of these stories. I've been, So I had a boyfriend one time. He took a knife, took a gun to me. And in our little house that we lived in, there was an attic, and you could pull the string from the attic, and a little flop down flimsy ladder would go up. And I was running for dear life because, you see, I was imprisoned in that apartment with him yelling, screaming, calling me everything that you can imagine, and then threatening me with the knife and threatening with the gun, and there was no way out. And I remember the attic, and I got the string, and I'm halfway up the attic, and he's trying to slice me with the knife. And I'm hollering and screaming and kicking, but to no avail. And this went on for 2 hours or more. And finally, a neighbor or somebody heard enough of the violence that they called the police, and the police showed up, and I could hear that this is the police, and I started screaming even more, and the police came in. But you see, he told me if the police came that my life was going to be in danger even more. We're talking about domestic violence. And after that was all over and I moved, still in the same town, he continued to stalk me. I would be at my new apartment, I would look down, and there would be a car with somebody watching me. I would be at my job, and there would be somebody there that would be watching me. I could not go anywhere without somebody watching me. If I can't have you, nobody's gonna have you. We're talking about domestic violence. Do you know there's a scripture that we refer to as the golden rule? You've heard of the golden rule? And that actually the rule is do unto others you should have them to do, but people say the golden rule. And I was talking to somebody about it, and they said, yeah, the golden rule. Those that have the gold make the rules. Those that have the money try to rule and have control over those that don't have money. And then you have these people, these younger gay people that come into town, and perhaps they've not been on drugs before, perhaps they have been, but the drugs become more a part of their culture, and they're young, and they have the equipment that gay boys want. You know what I'm talking about. And they get passed from one person to another person to another person, and it becomes a vicious web, and we end up having sex trafficking going on, human trafficking going on, but nobody's talking about it because of the golden rule. Those that have the gold make the rules and sweep under the carpet. Those who have the name know how to play the game. So what do? I didn't press charges. Even though the police came, I didn't press charges. I was terrified because I had people around me that convinced me that really a crime hadn't been committed. It was just a heated disagreement at the moment. As a gay older man, I've had a different kind of violence. A boyfriend decide, you know how we have our iPhones, and you know how we have where we put our credit cards in our iPhones, and we all leave our iPhones out because we talk on them and we text on them. Anybody could reach in there and take a credit card out or the debit card out. So the boyfriend decided that he would take the debit card out and he would hook it to his Apple Pay. Financial violence. I can't tell you how many thousands I lost in financial violence towards that. But not only financial violence, the put down. You're nothing. You're never going to be anything. And pretty soon, my friends, you're so convinced that you're nothing and you're never going to be anything that they don't have to say it anymore because you're saying it to yourself, because the tape keeps playing. And why don't you leave? Oh, Oprah, I don't leave because I love him. Really? You've got a doctorate degree and you've got several certificates of completion of cognitive behavioral therapists and on and so forth, and you are I loves him. He's going to change. The chances of a person that is doing the violence is that they're not going to change. Whether it's a physical violence, emotional violence, or a financial violence, it is still violence. There's a hotline for domestic violence. It's 1-800-799-7233. I had saved about $280,000, a little more, and went into business with a former love interest. And in that business, it was supposed to be just a business. A business that had my name on it. A glamorous business. It wasn't a relationship anymore. The relationship had been over. And I was now seeing somebody different, but was grateful for the $1 million business that my former lover and I had started. And the former lover lived in a different state. And it was supposed to be that I had 50% of the business and he had 50% of the business. But on paper, being so eager to open the business, I had 49 and he had 50 and another person had 1. And that was explained to me because they were the chief financial officer in charge of things until we got things really ironed out that we needed that to happen. And I wanted to get the business open so badly that when he said, I'd never hurt you. Well, we opened the business. The business was successful to begin with. And he said, you can either have your boyfriend or you can have your $1 million business. You can't have both. So I ended up leaving my business with my name on it, selling my clothes on the street corner, losing my condo that I had, and was out in the street homeless, and ended up couch surfing. We're talking about domestic violence. I know what it's like to live with someone, live somewhere, and be thrown out in the street like yesterday's garbage and wonder what you're going to do. Who do you ask? Who do you talk to? The shame that it could even happen to you is so great that you want to hide, you want to die, you want to just evaporate and not be seen. So what happens with all this? You know, there's a pink ball this Saturday, and the pink ball is put on by the Transgender Health and Wellness Center here in Palm Springs. The Transgender Health and Wellness Center here in Palm Springs, because of government funding that was already approved, lost their housing funding for their domestic violence people. Yeah. There was a time here in Palm Springs that if you were a transgender and you were a product of domestic violence, that you could go to the Transgender Health and Wellness Center and they would be able to help you with housing, even temporary, and safety, like a safe house. Not true now because of the present administration and all the cuts that are going on. So what does one do? There's nowhere to turn. It looks bleak. You leave with the clothes on your back. You don't leave with your pride because how could this happen to me? So what do we do? Those of us who, or you, me now too, those of us that are on the sidelines of domestic violence. When whether it's a same-sex relationship, male couple, female to female, or whether it is a transgender violence, or whether it's a person with disability or an older person or whatever, the violence. First of all, listen. Listen without judgment. And as we listen without judgment, them sharing their survivor story, it is essential to create a safe environment for them to do that. It is essential to, as you've heard me say in many of my talks, listen and silence have the same letters except rearranged. When somebody who has been so severely abused, physically, mentally, emotionally, financially, whatever the abuse, it's important to let them tell their story as many times as they need to tell the story, because they are holding toxicity within their very physical being, and that has got to come out. And it does not come out by us being judgmental. Girl, I could have told you that was a bad relationship you were getting in, but you didn't want to listen. I saw this coming, you know. Shut the up and simply listen. Ask God to give you a heart of compassion, a heart that you can feel what this wonderful human treasure is going through and growing through. Sometimes just listening and not flapping our jaws at that moment. And then as we listen, let us validate the feelings that the survivor has. I can tell you as a survivor that there's the experience of shame, there's the experience of confusion, there's the experience of fear. And it's so important and so vital to validate the survivor's experience without diminishing them, without making them feel like they're less than, but making them feel like they're valued and they're heard. Because, my friend, all of us have human values, even when we don't feel it. And sometimes we have to feel the value for somebody until they can feel it for themselves. Now, you know, being a minister, a preacher, a reverend, I've got to throw in a scripture. And there's a scripture that talks about, it says, forbearing one another. That scripture says forbearing one another is translated this way: picking up and carrying somebody at your own expense until they can walk and stand on their own 2 feet. I don't know how many times in people that know me, that I've worked with on a personal level, that they will say to me, you always tell me I'm a wonderful human treasure. And I say, because you are. But sometimes they can't see it. They're so damaged they can't see it. And you've got to see it for them. And not push, but just be there as a foundation, because their foundation has been rocked out from underneath them. The third thing that we as people that are wanting to be supportive have to do is we have to respect the survivor's boundaries. Y'all, trauma is a complex thing. Not everybody is ready to talk about it. Let the survivor lead the conversation and be sensitive to what their needs are. Now, I was sharing with somebody the other night about the time that somebody put a gun in my rectum up my butt, and they did the chamber, and they had one bullet in the chamber, and they were playing Russian roulette. When that incident happened, it was years later, before I could even bring myself to talk about it or even admit it, because of the trauma and the shame that happened. In my own life, I have allowed partners to walk on me. Shame on me. But you see, shame is something that we are. Guilt is an action. So while I may feel guilty for allowing those things to happen, I am not shame. I am not shame. I am not shame. Yes, guilt for making decisions that weren't the best, but not being shame. Because I'm a good person, and I know I'm a good person. And nothing that you say to me will let me think that I'm not a good person. Yes, I make mistakes. I'm not perfect. And our humanity, we're not perfect. I get angry. You know, anger. Anger is one of those kind of electrical emotions that's in all of us, that the sparks begin to fly and our muscles tense up. And what do we do when we get angry? Some of you who may be in domestic relationships and you're beginning to see yourself as the perpetrator in this. Couple things. When you recognize it, if you can, in that moment, tell yourself to calm down. Lower your tone of voice. Lower the decimals. Anger serves a purpose. When it's angry about the injustice that's going on, or a political issue, it can motivate us to act good, okay? There are a lot of influential moments in history when we've used anger or frustration for a movement, such as the abolitionist movement, which was started by the Quakers, people that were pacifists, people that were people of peace. You know, Dr. Martin Luther King says, "I choose love. Hate is too much of a burden to bear." My friend, while I choose love, I also choose to stand up for myself now. And I understand that anger can be very dangerous, and anger can get out of control. And how we express that anger, that emotion, it manifests itself in certain ways, and it gets away from us. Our physical sense, when the symptoms happen, our heart beats faster, our breath, the breath begins to increase. For me, I take a moment, and in taking a moment, I stop, and in stopping, I do what I call intentional breathing, and I ask that God in His love give me peace right now. God in His love calling. See that phone calling? That's God calling me. That's God calling, that's heaven calling, saying, "My child, be filled with peace. Be filled with love." Sometimes I've had to leave and take a walk. We need to be at a place where we feel safe or do whatever is going to work for that. Friendships are so important to build, where they are solid friendships. Because you see, what I know and have experienced is that if you're being domestically violated by somebody, domestically violated, usually the perpetrator has other people in on it. Maybe the neighbors, maybe the circle that you run with. You know, everybody keeping an eye on you. You know, there's such a thing as gang stalking. Look it up, see what that is. It comes in different varieties, in different fashions. It's designed to make you feel crazy and perhaps just end your life because you would get so miserable. But you're a human treasure, you're not going to do that. So in this talk tonight, we have so much hatred going across the country, across the world, and it's being sanctioned. We've always had hatred. It's always been there, but it's kind of been undercover. The lid's been pulled off of it now. You speak a different language, we can roll you up and we can send you far away to some prison where you're never seen from again. You're transgender? Oh, no, we can roll you up and we can toss you away because there's only two genders. How idiotic is that? You're gay? Well, yeah, we did pass same-sex marriage, but y'all know that's still wrong. That ain't right. So the discrimination, the hatred, even in an area where it seems so open, we are being violated over and over and over again. So I'm bringing this to a close. Remember I said transgender people are over 4 times more likely to experience victimization, rape, sexual assault, aggravated assault, you name it, than cisgender people. What you gonna do to help? LGBTQA plus isn't just one letter, it's all letters collectively together, taking a stand against hatred, standing up for our rights as wonderful human treasures. Instead of tearing each other down in that complex, we're lifting each other up. We've got each other's backs. Now let me say something while I'm closing. This has been quite lengthy. If you're a victim of domestic violence, take a look at yourself too. As I look back on the times that I was either knocked unconscious, or somebody took a gun or a knife to me, or somebody told me to shut up and not talk, whatever it was, or I chose the relationships that were constrictive and controlling. I understand that energetically I knew what that was because as a child, I knew what it was to be no violence. As a child, I did not grow up having people say, I love you. I did not grow up having somebody rock me in their arms. I didn't have anybody tell me they loved me till I was an adult. And it was to the extent that one year I read 300 books on what love is because I wanted to understand what it was, because I had no concept of what safety was. My radar just wasn't there. I was doing my best just to make through the day. Survival, always survival. And now I'm about thriving, not just surviving. I'm about choosing differences in my life. I'm about bringing along people in my life. I'm not about chasing a relationship. I'm about choosing one that's going to develop and be healthy. I'm about choosing a relationship with myself and not needing. There's a drag queen named I Need a Man. It's a cute name. It comes from I need a man. You do not need a man. You need yourself. When you begin to work on yourself, if a partner is to come into play, dear God, you've sent them. And I have criteria, and I have all the things that they need to meet. And that list isn't, 6'2", eyes are blue, or tall, dark, and handsome, or a 12-inch dick. Yeah, I said it. Or a bubble butt. It's the integrity of the person, the character of the person, the heart of the Christ consciousness in the person. Oh, I don't give a rat's behind whether you're a Muslim, whether you're Islamic, whether you're a Buddhist, whether you're an atheist, whether you're a Pentecostal, whatever it is that you're, whether you're Methodist, whatever it is you are. I care less on your religious trapping. What is the Christ consciousness? Christ meaning the enlightened one. How is that light of love flowing through you? How is that light of love as you beam that? When I see you, when we say namaste, is the God in me saluting the God in you? Are you narcissistic? Take them aside, pass them on by. Are you loving? Not cunning, but loving? Are you supportive? Not of the golden rule where you have the gold and you make the rules. There's a art of negotiation that old Numbnuts wrote, right? Or probably somebody wrote it for him. But there is the art of working together as a team, negotiating what's best for you, what's best for them, what's best for us, and what's best for the universe and the godness. Dear God of many names, let us breathe out any fear. Heal our hearts. Heal our minds. Heal our spirits. Dear God, where we have erred in our humanity, bring us to a place. Bring us to a place by your grace where we're going to know safety. Help us to listen, to become quiet, And in that quiet place, understand that you're preparing a place for us to move and have our being. And in this moment in time, for the survivors, me too, I'm a survivor. Oh. Let me breathe healing in. Let me breathe healing in. Where I've condemned myself, where I've shamed myself. Let me understand that I'm a wonderful human treasure. And from this day forth, I am a human treasure. I am the essence of God. And I am trusting that source, the divine, is so powerful that as I lean into that, you're making the way. One more thing as we pray. Y'all know that the transgender, is under fire. I was told the other night by somebody, they said, well, you know, in Palm Springs, you might be passable because Palm Springs, everybody's blind. But let me tell you, if I took you to Oklahoma or Ohio or someplace, they would just string you up and be done with you because you're not a good person. My transgender brothers, sisters, can I say this? When we're out and about and somebody does one of those looks, you know, rather than be angry at their ignorance, and let that anger reside in us. Let's stop and understand that we need to be able to send spiritually such a blanket of love over them to help heal their ignorance and to help heal their heart and their mind, because they only are reaching out like that because they're hurt also. Now when I say love, if somebody physically attacks you or verbally attacks you, I'm not saying turn the other cheek and let them beat you to a pulp. I'm saying that if out and about somebody from whatever distance gives you one of those and you happen to notice it, then you in your oneness with Spirit, your oneness with God, your oneness with all of us together, are smart enough to say, dear God, right now in that moment, you do the work in their heart and life that needs to be done. Now somebody's going to attack you physically. That's it. That's it. If you're in a situation and you can't see yourself out of that abusive relationship, begin to see yourself out of it. Begin to plan for yourself out of it. And once you're out of it, do not go back into it. Misery loves company. And we've been in it so long that it's comfortable being in there. It's something that we know. We know how to be abused. We've been abused by somebody for so long. We know what that feels like. It's like putting on a jacket. Well, let's take the jacket of violence and abuse off and try on something different. Yeah, you might not be able to live in the big house that you were living in. You might be living in a studio now. You might be living in the back of your car now. I know what it's like to live in the back of my car. Then I know what it's like to not have the back of a car to live in, but to be in the doorways. And I'm saying to myself, not anymore. Why did this happen to me? I'm saying, what is the lesson in this for me? What is the lesson in this for me, and how is this making me a better person? Because I am strong, I am gentle, I am faithful, I am loving, I am courageous. And tonight, if you don't feel any love at all by anyone else, I am love, sharing who I am. I'm just touching my hands on yours. And as I touch my hands on yours, and our hands touch each other, feel through even the video that love coming to you out of my heart, through my arms, up through my hands, saying, I love you. You are valuable. You are valuable. And you, yes, you right there, yes, you, yeah, you're the one. You're the one shaking your head right now. You are valuable. You're a winner. I know you're gonna make it because I believe in you and I believe in God. And so it is. Until next time, Dr. D, sending my love to you.